see you.
See you. Thanks so much for having me.
That's all right. Please come in.
Beautiful house.
Thank you. There we are. Right, so we're going to have a talk about the named person.
Indeed. Hot topic.
It is, and it would be good to clarify all the stories about it that are not true and help people to understand what is actually the reality, something good.
Well, that'd be fantastic, because I think it's true to say that there's a real mismatch between perception of the policy and the reality, and that people are being frightened by what they're being told about named person, and they're perceiving it to be something it's definitely not. And it's going to be useful just to delve into the subject a wee bit, so that any parents out there, or indeed children who are involved, that they could see what it's really about, and hopefully take away a much more positive view about it being there to help them. So I'm grateful for you, as someone who's got a background in teaching and guidance teaching in that area, to give us a wee bit of your thoughts.
I think that this is a really good thing, is getting it right for every child. And I like that you have the word every in, because I know that there are specific children with additional needs who right away need a lot of input, and you need to do a very planned programme. But there are also children who kind of disappear in the class. They don't misbehave, they don't draw attention to themselves, but they have needs and they're not always addressed. So that's why I like the word every in there, because I think it's a good ideal to aim for. It's a very hard one to achieve, but I think it's a good thing to aim for and target. Because we have to think of all of our children, and because they are the future for the country, and trying to get them to attain as much as possible will help us. It'll help the health of Scotland, and it'll help the economy too, because they've...
I think you're absolutely right, Irene, and when I think about my own childhood as well, and I think we can all do that, I both knew children that were friends of mine that you might outwardly have thought were having a happy time at school, that everything was okay, but I knew, and I've also had it in my own life when my parents divorced when we were younger, that it can have an effect on you. And there are times with every child, every family, you can't prejudge which child is going to be the one that has the difficulties and the challenges in their education, and regardless of income or their social circumstances, where they're born and brought up, any child potentially at some point may have a challenge in their education or their wider life, and need support to help them through that. And so I think it's fundamentally important that we don't, as some commentators have, and some of our opponents have, say, well, that's all right if it's for the people that are at risk, or you don't know who's at risk, and we don't know, sadly, which child is suffering a learning disability, or which child is suffering abuse at home, and that's the whole point. That these things are happening behind under the radar, and behind closed doors, and in a private setting, and so it's important that we make sure whatever provisions we have in our education system are designed to work in the interests of the needs of every single child in the circumstances they find themselves in, not to categorise people in a certain way. They're okay, we don't have to worry about them, and there's other children who are in some way more vulnerable, and we have to focus entirely our efforts on those children.
I agree, and I think sometimes these children go right through primary being invisible, and they're in secondary, and the problems can mount there. It's a crucial stage, and so I absolutely agree that I'm glad it's every child. And I know that the experiment has, well, it's a pilot, isn't it, in Highland area. It began there, but it began quite a while ago, didn't it?
Yes. I'm sure there's 3 local authority areas I think they'll be piloting the named person approach, and South Ayrshire, Highland and Blue Shetland are the 3. And so the debate that we're having, which I believe has been to some extent used as a debate for political ends during an election by some of our opponents has been around something which is regarded as good practice and has been taken forward to see how the named person, towards giving every child a named person, taking forward existing practices in terms of looking after the welfare of every child, but extending that to a principle that means that every child in theory has a named person, which they may or may not ever need, has been taken forward in these areas as a pilot. And we now have a proposal through the Act to extend that to the whole of Scotland. The thing I find amazing is when this went through to Parliament, sitting through the debate and hearing some of the fox rage that people come forward with and thinking, if you feel so strongly about it, why are you voting for the bill and why are you abstaining? So the Conservatives abstained. They felt so strongly about it, they abstained. And other parties in the Parliament supported it. So it's very convenient that at this point in time in the election it's now become a point of principle apparently that they struggle with. But I think it is absolutely about getting the right support for every child when they need it and when they need it. And that might involve somebody needing speech and language therapy and being able to point them in the right direction, and the named person acting as a signpost. But you've, if I could put it to you, you've been someone who fulfills that role. What do you make of it, and what it's like in practice?
I worked a lot with children with additional needs. I had a responsibility for them, and what I found was that one of the approaches is the getting it right for every child is to lessen the bureaucracy and give people more time to work with the child and the family. And I think that is really, really crucial, because you can get absolutely bogged down filling out reports and the actual review that is held for children with specific needs can involve a huge number of people. I was once at a review where we must have had, in a smallish room, at least 15, 16 adults. Poor child, poor family sitting there. And it raised tension in an atmosphere, so it was too much. And I think the idea of streamlining the system is very good, because it's only the people that really have to be there, your named person, and maybe if they need specific help, the lead professional there to take things on, to streamlining the system much better. But there has to be a good system of recording that information. But the actual named person is so natural to children now. They have at nursery a key person, who works with them. They go on to school and they've got their teacher, and they go on to high school where they've got their guidance teacher. They meet that person before they're even in the school. So it's natural for them to have somebody that they know will be the person they can speak to.
What do you make of, sometimes there's assertion made by people who are opposed to named person that in some way it interferes with family life and the role of parents. I struggle with that myself as someone who, I frankly haven't had any major issues to raise, but I've always found it a comfort to be able to speak to the head of a primary school. If there's something going on that I feel the school need to be aware of for my own son's welfare, having someone that I know that I can speak to, and I see that as being something that's there to support me as a parent, not to interfere with my own parent. But what do you make of it from a teaching professional's point of view?
It's essential to speak to the parent and the child, and I think that was always quite a rewarding part of it, because you could really just sit down comfortably and chat. You need the time to do that, but it was always very much worthwhile, because often it was just something very small that needed to be altered in the programme of work, or a situation between two pupils not getting on or something. That can be sorted out, end of story, parent goes away quite happy, and the teacher feels, that was good. bringing in other people, where, like you mentioned about speech and language and all that to me was an addition to it, and was always very worthwhile. So the input there when needed, but most often it was not required. It was just a basic, let's sit down and talk.
The other way, but I've described it as not being entirely the same, but I regard it as being the way I kind of rationalise it in my head. We've all got a GP.
Yes.
You don't need to use your GP every day, nor do you want to use your GP every day. But it's a comfort to know your GP is there when you need them, and of course they provide you with help when you need it. And it's your choice when you go and seek that support from a GP. Obviously, you don't get a choice of being ill, unfortunately, would that be the case, but when you do fall ill, it's your decision when you think it's serious enough to go and speak to the GP. So in some respects, that's the way I regard it in my head, that there's a named person there for every child, and that named person is there to support the parent or the child if the child goes to the named person, because we all know, sadly, not every family situation is stable. Not every family are there two parents where the child can feel confident enough to speak to them about a sensitive issue, or to get advice and support if they're being bullied at school or something of that nature. So the child may choose themselves to go and speak to a named person. But the point is, it's a voluntary thing.
It is, yes, and there's a lot of trust built up, because you know that person will stand up for you and listen to you. And I think listening is really, really important. Talking is good too, of course, but listening to what the child wants to say is important. And I think it's just a reassurance. I mean, if you think back to when we have children, the baby, if you've got a problem with a baby feeding or something, you don't just say, oh well, it'll sort itself out, do you? You say, could I have some advice? And that's fine, and everything's made right then. Well, I was going to mention the fact that this is a policy that runs throughout the country, and I'm thinking of children that move from one area to another, because living in the borders, there was often children moving across the border, and we sometimes had children from the south of England coming. We're used to a quite different system. But the system that we have in place for this throughout Scotland will be helpful, because all the procedures will be the same. Am I right in saying that?
Well, that's the benefit of having a national rollout of something like this, because you're right, it does mean that at the moment a child is maybe in the pilot area in South Ayrshire, their family may move just over the border into Kilmarnock or somewhere, and suddenly the system no longer applies, whereas this will ensure continuity when people move from one area of Scotland to another, and that the child will then be able to, the model of operating, if you like, will carry forward to the child, and the parents will know how to engage with local services, and if they do need support, they'll know who can signpost them to that support and say, here's where you can get help for problem X or problem Y. And so I think it would be reassuring for parents that regardless where they are in the country, they know they need to ask, who is my named person, or who's my child's named person, and they can establish that link very quickly once they move into a new area. So I think you're right, rollout creates that continuity, consistency of approach, and when it comes to the more severe kind of child welfare issues that we've dealt with, and I'm very much was motivated in supporting this bill when it came through Parliament because of stories such as Caleb Ness and Baby P, where great tragedies had unfolded, and that may not be the norm, but I think there's no excuse for not coming up with something to ensure that problem isn't dealt with. And a great frustration I've had with the debate to date, political debate to date about this, has also been that those who are now opposing or claim to oppose named person principle, or indeed are calling for a review of it very quickly before it's even really got off the launch pad, aren't coming forward with any sensible alternatives to ensure that a situation that affected young Caleb Ness or Baby P will not arise again. So if not named person, what else do they recommend? And I think there's a duty on their part to come forward with a proposal which will do the same job, to ensure that there's no breakdown in sharing communication between vital agencies, social workers or health visitors or teaching professionals, to make sure that the welfare right of the child is respected in every case.
Yes. I think guidance teachers in school are and these are the people that I know how they work, because I had to work in their team, and they are under quite a lot of pressure coping. Children want to talk about a problem, and fitting that into the school day can be quite tricky, and often it's, I need to talk about it now, you know, not tomorrow but now, and it makes it difficult for them. Will there be more staffing? Hopefully more staffing in the way of teachers who can have the time set aside for children to talk with them.
Well, certainly, I mean, we are very much aware that both in areas such as specialist roles such as mental health or health visitors, there are commitments in the manifesto of the SNP for this election to invest more in mental health, which obviously will involve roles such as educational psychology to help individuals where they need support, grief counselling. I see from having met young offenders at Paul Wheelhouse Young Offenders Institute, the number there who have had sometimes 4 or 5 close bereavements in their family by the time they reach the age of 15, 16. And so clearly that kind of trauma that happens to many young people needs to be given appropriate support. So I think that's an area both in the justice system and in the education system. There's a recognition there needs to be more support for young people, and as part of GIRFEC to ensure that we understand the needs of the individual. So while there's a big debate about attainment at school, and sometimes the debate is focused on purely on teachers, as in what we regard traditional class teaching positions. I think you're right that some of the money that has been identified for closing the attainment gap and on supporting the investment in our schools will need to look at areas like the educational psychology roles, guidance support teachers, health visitors for those that are preschool, to ensure that there's appropriate support for people at all ages. And I'm really proud of what the government has also done through rolling out family nurse partnerships as well, to support parents and children, really young children, before they even get to preschool stage, to make sure that you deal with the challenges they face in their lives at the earliest possible stage, and to nip in the bud anything that may have a detrimental impact on education. So I think we can all be very proud of what we do there. We've still got much to learn as a country, I think, but we are getting, I think, the right principles in place, and understanding that the earlier you intervene, the bigger the impact you can have on the child. So I certainly support investment in those areas, and I do thank those teaching professionals who are carrying out guidance roles, because it's a bit of an unheralded occupational but a vital one. And I think as a parent, I'm sure other parents would agree, we're very grateful for the help that they provide for our children going through schools, and making sure that any challenges they do face are dealt with.
I think too that the children nowadays are they find it much easier to come forward and talk. I think that's good progress. In the past, I think we would keep quiet, and but I think children have more confidence. I think it's all part of this emphasis on well-being, well-being leading to a better attainment, and being conscious of things that help you to be a good learner. I think that's a good way forward, and it all fits in with the curriculum for excellence too.
I do think that any change in the curriculum and the teaching methods which underpin the curriculum for excellence, which is encouraging young people to be confident individuals and confident learners, and as you indicate, confident enough to ask questions when things are not being going well for them. I am struck by, in the course of my ministerial role, I have met many people who are going through substance misuse challenges and are going through drug treatment or recovery. And when I asked them about, why it was that they are in that situation, many It's not a scientific figure, but maybe 2 in 3 that I speak to have had some form of trauma in their life, and they may well be in childhood. So suffering domestic violence in the home or directly to themselves, or unfortunately historic child sex abuse issues. And I would hate to think there are children in this day and age who are not being equipped with the confidence to speak to somebody if they are, if there's something not quite right, if they sense that what's being done to them isn't normal and isn't right, then they can come forward, have the bravery to come forward, because that's the only way in which we can stamp this kind of behaviour out. But I think the curriculum for excellence, making people think for themselves and question what's happening in their world and their immediate environment, will give them the confidence and skills to be able to understand that what's happening isn't what should be happening, and to hopefully come forward and seek advice from a guidance teacher or their named person.
Or a named person. And the named person is obviously, it's been in place as a named person for in some areas for a wee while now. And have you got any feedback of how parents feel about that? Are they happy with that situation?
Well, I have to say, until the No to Name Person campaign started to highlight what I think are some slightly slightly idiosyncratic kind of examples of where problems have happened, that the suggestion that they're making that people are interfering and saying what colour their child's bedroom walls should be, seems to be completely off the wall. They're not what named person is about at all. And the Lord Carloway's decision, legal decision determination, saying that named person has absolutely no impact on the role of the parent in making decisions for their child, I think is a very profoundly important one, because it does nail this kind of myth that it's a state intervention in the role and responsibilities of parents. I've not been presented with that as an MSP who's represented as the South of Scotland. I've not had one issue raised with me in the course of the period in which South Ayrshire was piloting this about individual cases. That tells me that this has not been a huge issue, and while I respect the right of individuals to challenge policy, I hope that there's also recognition this is a democratically decided policy in the Scottish Parliament, 103 votes to nil, and that the Parliament has made clear that the welfare rights of a child are paramount here.
It's quite discouraging when you actually know that the named person is such a good idea, and I've never heard any parents of young children, school-aged children, saying, I don't agree with that. We're happy to know who to contact and to raise issues or have a general chat. So it's so discouraging to hear people saying things like Snooper's Charter or intrusion.
Yes, and the state-sponsored guardian is the other one that they've come up with. I think it's very telling that they've had to invent new names for the named person to actually make it sound scary, to make it sound intrusive, when the reality is it's been applied for years on an informal basis, without any real scandal, and if anything, it's helped parents and children in challenging times. And this, I wonder, to be honest, be frank, whether this would be a story at all if it wasn't for an election year.
Well, that's exactly my feeling. I feel that there's political malice involved in this, rather than actually letting people know the situation. And I find that a very sad, really, that people aren't fully informed and come to wrong conclusions.
Yeah, well, I think I would only add to that. I think people are being misled in many cases, so I can understand why they are perhaps twitchy about a policy that has been grossly misrepresented by some in the press and clearly in the opposition. It's a great regret that something like that important as this, the welfare of a child or children as a whole, should be politicised in this way. And I hope that once the election is out of the way and the heat of the battle and the fog of war is cleared, that people actually knuckle down and realise this is not a bad thing at all. It's there to help parents, it's there to help children. It's not compulsory. yes, every child has a named person, but that's just giving them a name, someone they can speak to or seek advice from. It in no way forces them to engage with that person at all. And it's entirely in their decision whether they should seek support and advice from the named person. And all I feel is very tragic as well is that some highly professional people who are doing the work as a vocation to help children, to help families, are being made to feel defensive about something they should be very proud of. They're trying to help people have a happier and healthier and more successful outcome in life, including the parents. And are there entirely to help them if they need help. And I would be very much saddened if people are deterred from joining a very valuable profession because of the negativity that there is in the press.
There is a fear for that, isn't there? That people will be put off, and that they feel they may be challenged, or that legal action might be taken, and things like that. And that is very sad for a situation that works very, very well, and many, many parents are delighted with.
Indeed.
Okay.
Thank you very much for giving me your perspective on it. It's really it's great to hear from somebody who's done it firsthand and knows all about it. So thank you for that.